Okay, so we're gonna get started here. I wanted to start this by talking about what's been going on with me for the last really couple of years, but specifically the last couple of months. Um, I okay, so to get things started, on August 21st of this summer, I turned 30 years old. And 1 week later to the day, I was let go of the job that I had had for 8 years. And I was devastated. I genuinely didn't know or expect it. And this job had really been the only thing that I had done for the last 8 years. And I didn't really know, where to go. I It's difficult to really talk about, but when I lost my job, I started to think about all the reasons why I lost my job and really reevaluate, the way that I've been acting over the last couple of years. And I realized as I sat and I thought about it that, I've really damaged myself pretty deeply over the last couple of years. Part of the reason I lost my job is because my inability to, how do I say this? So, for the last couple of years, I've dealt pretty seriously in and out with depression. And, some days are obviously better than others, some months are better than others, but this summer things really took a turn for the worst. I spent so much time alone in my room, and the nature of my job was such that it was a lot of work for a couple hours at a time or a couple days at a time, and then generally a lot of waiting around. And so what this led me to do over the last couple of years was become somebody who, I'm gonna pause real quick. So as I started to, spend more time just waiting around for work to come through, I wouldn't do anything at all. In fact, I would just lay around and watch videos or play games. And this led to a really insidious cycle where I was just not doing anything whatsoever. I would wait around for the next batch of work to come in, and I would just sit there with nothing to do. And every day I would tell myself, the next day I'm going to break out of this habit and do something and move around and be better. And I just wouldn't. I would spend the next day doing the exact same thing. The only times that I would ever really go out are when certain friends would hit me up to hang out, and that was becoming rarer and rarer as my friends started to enjoy their own lives and their own relationships, and I became further and further isolated in my own head and my own room. And things deteriorated pretty severely, and I started to really feel down about myself. And this continued over the course of multiple years. And then this summer, things really started to add up. I was just kind of doom scrolling every single day. And then when I would go into work and interact with people, my anxiety would be at an all-time high. And I just started to develop really antisocial behaviors due to that anxiety. And I was, treating people around me probably not the best. And I don't want to say that I was, ever particularly rude or mean. I was just constantly short-fused and grumpy and anxious and just not an altogether pleasant person to be around. And, that's not who I've ever really wanted to be or sought to be. And, over time, those things began to really add up. And I was just not doing my job to the best of the ability. And I think, I think, this has been going on for years, if I'm being honest. I have been not active. I have had strong feelings of self-hate and, disassociation from, the real world around me. And I've grown further from, people that I've spent most of my life trying to cultivate friendships with. And I just became so isolated. And I think that isolation led me to just not wanting to do anything pretty much ever. And it started to show up in the workplace. And as time went on, people started to notice, and I just wasn't happy. And I think, losing my job that day was so devastating. And I was constantly thinking to myself, okay, well, what's next? Like, what's next? Where do I go from here? Because, in truth, I didn't really love what I was doing. I think when I first got my job out of school, there were certain circumstances in my home life that made me seriously pursue the path, because it was the first real job offer that I had been given since I graduated college. And then I slowly found a lane, keep that job and keep performing and learning more in that role. But it was never something that I sought out to do. It just kind of found me. And over time, I grew more and more dissatisfied with what I was doing without necessarily even realizing it. And the nature of the job being so touch and go, where work would come in all at one point, was difficult. And I would just lay around. And obviously after COVID, things started to get worse. And, we started working from home more and more. And there was a brief period where we were going into the office, but that quickly stopped. And I would spend most of my time, either doing the work that was set out to me or just laying around doing nothing, telling myself that I would be better the next day or the day after that or the day after that. And that starts to eat at you, and you get into these cycles where you tell yourself, that you're going to do something to change. You tell yourself that you're going to be better the next day. And then the next day comes, and it's just so easy to continue to do the thing that you were doing already. And you begin to lose sight of, what the future even holds. You start to become, just totally static in your life. There's no change. There's no growth as a person. and you just become increasingly more and more isolated in real time. Not only just in your mind, but also in the things that you're doing and the people that you're seeing. And it's difficult for me to really put into words the type of like isolation I felt, because I think from the outside looking in, people say like, oh, you have all these friends, like you know all these people, but I still felt so alone all the time. And yeah, as time progressed, I think certain things just really started to add up in terms of feeling dissatisfied with my job, feeling like I didn't have anything to offer what I was doing, and then when I would go to work, feeling just like super anxious about getting the work done, and it would just come across to the people that were around me. And this summer, things really took a turn for the worse. The last couple months, I have been really inactive. I have put on probably more weight than I ever have in my entire life. And I just started to get really difficult to be around on a daily basis. And it started to show up in my work. And, that's just not really something that could continue. And I think, I don't want to talk too much about my former employer, but at the very least, one of them noticed these things and started to try, at the very least, to let me know that these things were starting to affect my work. But it was a little too late, and they had decided to move on. And so I'm left here now feeling as though I'm this broken person who doesn't have a path forward because I don't want to just jump back in to the same industry that just left me feeling totally listless and totally isolated. I think if I were to just go and grab a job that popped up just to make money, I would continue this cycle of self-harm that I have put myself through over the last couple of years and the last couple of months. And I just think that trying to, just jump back in and find, the next job would continue this cycle, and I would not only be a detriment to myself, I would not be able to perform for that company in a correct way, and I would likely lose another job and be left with, not knowing where to go once again. So I took a step back, and I thought to myself, what can I really do? Because I think I need to get myself in a position where I can re-enter the workforce with a clear mind and a real goal to try and, at the very least, be a better employee somewhere. So I thought, I'm left with two options here. I can spend some time working on myself, both physically and mentally, and try and do something creative in the process, like going live and making videos, which is something that I've always really wanted to do. I think I got away from that when I was younger because I was feeling pressured to find a job and feeling pressured to make money immediately out of college because things in my personal life were really stressful and things were deteriorating fast, and there was a lot of pressure from my family to get a job and get stability into my life. And so I took that and ran with it. But along the way, I lost any kind of creative energy or fun in the things that I had learned how to do. So the other option was to just search for a job that matched somewhat of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years. But like I said, I think re-entering the workforce in the same defeated and depressed and isolated attitude and persona that I had created for myself would just continue to deteriorate my physical health, my mental health, and my relationships with the people around me. And so I decided that for the next few months at the very least, and then hopefully moving further along, I am going to go live on Twitch every day during the week at 10 a.m. I'm going to do planned workouts, create videos on subjects that I care about, and upload those to YouTube and create YouTube shorts in the hopes that I can grow and create something and build a community that people might want to join. I will go live, I'll walk on this treadmill, hopefully people come in and want to talk to me about what's going on in their lives. But if not, I am still doing things and being active and holding myself accountable to try and be a better person. This is a difficult journey to undertake, and I think I should be clear that I know that the success rate of people trying to actually earn a living off of Twitch or YouTube is incredibly low. And the likelihood that this will succeed, and in 6 months or 12 months, I'll say, look, I've been able to turn this endeavor into a full-time job, will likely not come to fruition. I think that that's obvious. Most people are unable to make that happen. And I'm most likely no different than most people, and will likely not succeed in turning this into a full-time endeavor. But at the very least, I will have taken a shot to create something for myself, and along the way, improve my physical and mental well-being. I think it's super difficult to turn 30 years old and not know where your life is headed. I think there's so much pressure on us in our society to have it all figured out as quickly as possible, to get the girlfriend, create a life for yourself, find a stable job, and build whatever life that you want to build. But that hasn't been the case for me. I've struggled throughout my 20s with self-image issues and self-confidence and just feeling genuinely down about my lot in life. And as I've reflected over these last couple of weeks since I lost my job, I've realized that my job may have been part and parcel of that, and that putting all of these expectations on myself, despite the fact that there was little to no upward mobility in the career that I had chosen, was doing real damage to my mental health. And now here I am at 30 years old, and I have lost that job. I did not make a lot of money in that job, but I've been able to put myself in a position where now I can at the very least take a shot on something creative. And I think part of the reason that things deteriorated so much this summer is that I wasn't reconciling the fact that I was experiencing all this anxiety about hitting 30. I kept putting off the idea of turning 30 as like, whatever, who really cares? It's just a number, it's just another year. I'm continuing on this same path. But really, subconsciously, I was freaking out. I felt like maybe I had made mistakes along the way and ended up somewhere where I really wasn't meant to be. And that's crazy. Like, that I might hit 30 years old and think that I've like completely stagnated in my life and that I have no more room to grow as a person. It's a sobering thought to think to yourself, I don't know what's next. It really is. And I don't know what's next. I still don't. But I have started to become more comfortable with the idea that it's okay to take chances on yourself. I've been so safe over the last 8 years because I didn't want to put myself in any position where I might be vulnerable to other people's opinions or vulnerable to failure. I'm so scared of failing that it has totally hamstrung my ability to do anything in life, to create relationships with friends or significant others or people at work. And I have, as a result, completely bottled in and become a shell of myself. And over time, these things add up. And you don't necessarily even realize until you're way too far in just how deeply and negatively these things can affect you. I think sometimes, we can acknowledge that, yeah, I'm feeling sad. I've been feeling sad for a while, and then just push through it. And then, 2 years down the line, you've been sad for 2 years straight, and you don't know how to fix it because you don't have the tools, because you've never allowed yourself to experience failure and experience rejection and all of these things because you've just played things so close to the vest. When I was coming out of school, I had two paths in front of me. I could take the path of the degree that I had earned and become a journalist, a reporter, a broadcaster. But the truth is, I got scared. And I didn't know if I could handle public scrutiny. And it led me down a path of a safer job that came along with easier money at the start and less time building a reputation. And so, given the pressures that I had at the time, I decided to go down that path. And I never necessarily regretted it until the last few years, as certain opportunities have come up in my life to explore the more creative aspects of my talents and the things that I learned. I've begun to regret those decisions. And now here I am, out of a job, 30 years old, forced to move back home because I can't afford to pay rent. And generally unsure of what's next. But the last few weeks, despite feeling so devastated when I lost my job, I finally feel some type of excitement about my future. It has been so long since I felt any type of nerves or excitement or joy at the idea of what the future could hold. And I think that that's generally part of this. I am sure that, my mental state over the last 5 years has deteriorated because I felt like I had nothing to look forward to. I didn't see myself improving physically. I didn't see myself improving mentally. I wasn't progressing in my career in the ways that I had hoped when I started it. And I think that this just led to an overall feeling of just total, I wasn't in control of my life. And I felt like the years and the months and the time had just started to slip away. And I was just watching day by day go by without really experiencing anything, without ever feeling anything. And I think that in the last 3 weeks, since I lost my job, time has really started to slow down for me. And I'm starting to take each day at a time and attack different goals and attack different aspects of this project with excitement and real joy. And I finally feel like I've found something once again that gets me excited. And I'm wary of this because I think that joy could be fleeting and a little bit, over-involved for one quick moment. I worry that I'm setting myself on a path of failure, and just to, come out on the other end, even in an even worse position. But I think that if I can do this the correct way and improve myself mentally and physically along the way, that even if I don't come out of this as being able to make a full-time salary on Twitch or on YouTube, because both are incredibly difficult things to do, I will make myself into a person who is more marketable as a professional, and is more equipped to re-enter the workforce and provide, a real service as an employee. And that's what I'm gonna do. I feel both scared and doubtful, but also confident and excited for the first time in such a long time. I think I spent so long with just absolutely nothing that I cared about or wanted to do or be a part of. And now I feel like I have a goal, something to work towards. And my hope in this project is that I get to do things that are fun and exciting, but also to try and connect with people who might be going through a similar thing. I think there's a lot of people who are hitting 30 and feel lost or losing their jobs and not knowing where to go. And I just want to open this space up for people to be able to come in and talk to me about what's going on and how they might be able to get better and how we can all get better together. And that's really what I'm trying to do here. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to potentially having fun with this. I don't want to take myself too seriously in this process, and I hope that people can come in here and have a good time and joke around. I think I've just become such a serious person over the last couple of years, and I don't want to be that person. And I know that this speech that I've given over the last 30 minutes has been very serious, but I'm not that person. I don't need every single moment to be worried about like what's going on health-wise and mentally. I want to have some fun again in my life, and I view this as an opportunity to, at the very least, try. So, as we look forward, and I wrap up some of my thoughts here on this first, treadmill walk stream, I'm excited about the possibilities of what this could become, and if it doesn't become much of anything, then that's fine too. And I've spent time investing in myself and learning new skills and trying to create something that I can look back on and enjoy. And that's pretty much it. I don't know what the future holds, and I don't know where this is going to take me, and I'm just excited to be making my own videos and, pushing forward to something real in the future. And yeah, that's pretty much it.